Hey folks, it's been a few days since my last video. As you can see, we're not going to go for a walk today. I decided to do a study. For my last few videos, it's been a little bit heavy, so I decided to liven it up a little bit and do a study on the Millennium. And as I did my homework, it's not since college have I did this much study. I've decided to do this in two parts because there's just that much to it. And let's get started. As I discovered that in Daniel, there was a period of 75 days before the millennial reign of Christ, a 30-day period, and then a 45-day period, a total of 75 days. What happens during this interval? So I did some homework, and there has to be a lot of stuff that has to happen before we get to reign with Christ. The first thing is that you have to understand, when we touch down after the tribulation with Christ, this earth, this world is gonna be torn up. We're talking about 28 judgments. 21 that we are aware of, with the seal, the trumpet, and the bold judgment. But we don't know what the thunders are. There could be judgments. It could be just, we don't know yet. So at most 28, at least 21 judgments. This earth is going to be torn up. And you know, one of my this is an example. Have you ever seen that movie with Harrison Ford, The Fugitive? You know that scene with Tommy Lee Jones? He shows up at the train accident, and the first thing that comes to his mind is, my, what a mess. Well, that's exactly what this earth is going to be. This earth is going to be a mess. So we have a earth to clean up, and there are certain things that are going to happen in this 75-day interval before the start of the millennium. Number one, and I'm going to give you some scripture verses. Copy them down. You can look them up. I'm just going to mention them, and you can look them up later and replay this if you like. Please like, share, and subscribe to this. I'm going to share some things that are going to happen before the millennial reign of Christ, and we'll go from there. Number one, the Antichrist and the false prophet are cast into the lake of fire. Them two are the first inhabitants of the lake of fire. And that is Revelation 19 and 20. Whenever Christ touches down, he touches down on the Mount of Olives. It splits in two whenever he touches down, and then he's going to grab the Antichrist and the false prophet, and the first thing he's going to do is he is going to cast them into the lake of fire, the first inhabitants. Number two, Satan is bound from this point to the end of the millennium. To the end of the millennium. He's going to be released for a short season, but at the end of the tribulation, he's going to be bound, and he's going to be cast into pretty much the abyss, and that is Revelation 20 1 through 3. He's going to be bound. And that way, the people that will survive the millennium, to survive the tribulation, my bad. There's going to be survivors of the tribulation. They're going to have kids. They're going to have a lot of kids. And at the end of the millennium, Satan is going to be released, where he's going to get to test these kids of the tribulation. We'll get to that at a later study. Number 3, the Old Testament saints at this time will be resurrected and given their glorified bodies. That's in Isaiah 26:19 and Daniel 12:2. See, part of the millennium is that God is going to fulfill His promise to the Jews, and they are going to be given their land to rule over. And that is, the Old Testament saints at this time will be given their glorified bodies and be resurrected at this time. The sheep and the goat judgment will be at this time. Now, during the millennium, only the believers will be a part of the millennial reign of Christ. That means that any survivors, whether they be Christians that got saved during the tribulation, that somehow survived, and non-believers. There's going to be non-believers that survived this time as well. They're going to be scooped up, and they're going to be judged at the sheep and goat judgment. The sheep on the right, the goats on the left. And the goats on the left, they will be killed and thrown into hell at this time, because only the believers will be a part of the millennium. So the sheep and the goat judgment will be during this 75 interval before the millennial reign of Christ. Number 5, the government structure of the coming kingdom will be set up during these extra 45 days. The 45-day interval, the government will be established. Now, at this time, during the Bema Seat of Christ, the believers will be rewarded. During the millennium, there's going to be teachers, there's going to be preachers, because they're still going to be unsaved at the millennial reign, because the believers, they're going to have kids. They're going to have a lot of kids. They're going to be unbelievers. They got to be saved during this time. So there's going to be preachers, there's going to be governors, there's going to be kings. The structure of the kingdom will be set up at this time. We're all going to be given our duties at this time. God knows our talents. He is going to know our jobs. He's going to give us jobs at this time. And at this time, we're going to know what we're going to be doing at this time. Some of us are going to be ruling over cities. I have to admit, I'm not a leader. I think God knows that. I've never been much of a leader. I've always been a follower. With that being said, I think He knows our talents. He's going to be giving us our jobs at this time, and we're going to work it. And I don't know how much to say about that. I'll go up to that later. Number 6. Now, this is highly debatable. I decided to put it in here, but I don't agree with this. But I'm going to say it possibly the marriage feast of the Lamb will take place at the closing of the 75-day period. That's Revelation 19:9. Lee Brainerd had a good video on this point, but I've always been at the belief that it's in heaven. But there is a debate whether it's in heaven or it's here on earth when we come back. I decided to put that in this video. It's nothing to have an argument over, but I think it's going to be in heaven. No, while the tribulation is at full force. There are some people that think that we're going to come back and it's going to be here on earth. Number one, Lee Brainerd says because the tribulation saints deserve to be a part of this wedding feast. The Old Testament saints deserve to be a part of this wedding feast. And the surviving Jews deserve to be a part of this wedding feast. That's what Lee Brainerd says. He makes a good argument. Well, I don't know. Number 7. At the end of the 75 days, Christ will set up his kingdom. Isaiah 2:2-4, Ezekiel 37, 1-13, and verses 4-48, Micah 4-17, Micah 4, verses 1-17, and Revelation 20. At the close of the 75 days, he's going to finally establish his reign. He's going to sit on his throne in the fourth temple, and that leads to the fourth temple construction. There is going to be a fourth temple in the millennium. There is going to be sacrificing of the Jews during this time. And you say, how is that possible? I thought Jesus settled everything. But I think the sacrificing is going to be a type of memorial. The Jews will sacrifice at this fourth temple. And also, here's something to remember. In the fourth temple, there's going to be a river that starts at the throne of Jesus. It's going to start as a trickle. You can read this in the last 2 chapters in Ezekiel. It's going to start as a trickle. It's going to lead into ankle deep. It's going to be, and then it describes as being waist deep. And then it also describes as it gets further along as waist deep and an impassable river, almost impassable. And it'll empty into the Dead Sea. And it's going to be fresh again. And the Dead Sea, which is the saltiest places on earth, this river is going to empty into it, and it's going to become fresh again, and it's going to be sort of a hub, a seaport. Let's talk about that for a second. That's kind of interesting to talk about. People are going to fish in the Dead Sea again. It's going to be fresh. Some of my best, I love seafood. And some of the best seafood I ever had was whenever I went to Florida. And we stopped at this hole-in-the-wall place by the beach in Florida. And it was some of the best seafood ever. I say that to say, what if, whenever we visit, and the Jerusalem is going to be the cat's meow at this time. It is going to be the world capital at this time during the millennium. And also, in Scripture, King David is going to rule in Jerusalem with Christ. King David is going to be like the king regent, the second command under Christ. That's in Scripture. And Jerusalem is going to be the city. It's going to be, we're all going to visit it. It's and the Dead Sea. What if there's going to be like shops and seafood places, and it's just going to be this tourist attraction? Maybe you'll have some of the best seafood there at the Dead Sea, because they're going to throw their nets down, and they're going to catch their nets full. It's going to be alive again. Basically, that and the Jerusalem is going to be the city of the ages. Everyone will want to visit. Kings and governors will come to worship Jesus in the Jerusalem. And if they don't, in the end times, they're going to get frustrated with Christ, and they're going to get tired of his rule, and they're not going to want to rule. And in Scripture, that is when Christ will hold back the rain on these cities and nations that don't come back and worship him. He will be worshipped. He'll be worshipped with the kings and governors, and Jerusalem is going to be the city to see. The earth at this time is going to be a virtual garden. It's hard to imagine what the earth will be like at this time. It's going to be like before the flood and before man's sin. There's going to be a partial removal of the curse, and it's going to be a garden. I love nature. As you realize whenever I go on my walks, and I take y'all with me, it's going to be just forest, and it's going to be gardens galore, and birds. And here's something to think about. What if during the millennium, all of these far gone animals that have long been extinct come back? Dinosaurs, the dodo bird, all of the carrier pigeon. I'm just naming a few off the top of my head. What if at this time that all these long gone animals are going to be brought back? It's going to be a virtual garden. And at the end of the millennium, at the second Gog and Magog war, when all of these people that are born during the millennium, they go against Christ, they'll have no argument that it was the environment. Christ is going to look at him and said, I gave you a virtual garden to live in. You chose not to follow me in the end. So it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be far more than we can ever imagine. What is technology going to be during the millennium? Don Perkins thinks it's going to be high-tech technology. I'm on the fence that it's going to be a happy medium. There are going to be cities. There are going to be high-tech cities, but there's also going to be farming communities. I'm going to touch that on the next video. There's going to be a lot of farming communities. Farming is going to be the number one priority during the millennium, and then there's going to be cities Again, we're all going to have jobs involved during the millennium. It will be a theocratic government, a Christ under a government under Christ. He's going to rule with a rod of iron. Why? Because there's still going to be sin during the millennium. Well, how does that be? Satan is bound for 1,000 years. There's going to be people born during the millennium, and man's nature, man's heart is to sin. They are going to sin. Sin is going to be dealt with swiftly. It's going to be dealt with quickly. So that is why there's going to be a group of people in glorified bodies. There's going to be judges. There's going to be magistrates, and we're going to. It's our job to deal with sin directly, and it'll be dealt with swiftly. So that's just that. It's just hard to imagine. It's just hard to imagine what it's going to be like. Yeah, I lost my notes. So, I'm going to touch on a lot of more things in my second part of this video. Like I said, my little dog's here with me. I'm here sitting in my my new study. I just moved in a couple of weeks ago. As you can see, there's still a lot of boxes that need to be unpacked and moved. I've ordered some bookshelves and stuff too. I'm in the process of cleaning this out, but I'm sitting here and I like to call them a little study. But I'm going to touch on a lot of things on my second part of this video. Whenever I dove into the millennium, there's a lot to it. So I knew at that time I was going to have to do this in 2 videos. So you need to be saved in order to be a part of the millennium. There are no unbelievers that are going to be a part of the millennial reign of Christ. It's going to be peaceful. It's going to be prosperous. It's going to be awesome. You want to be a part of it. I hope you get saved today. So this is part 1 of the video. As I said in my previous videos, I said I'm not a good preacher. I'm not a good teacher. I'm learning a lot in these videos. I went back and it was hard, but I watched my other videos as a learning experience, and I discovered I was repeating myself a lot. It's not, I guess it was a lot harder than I realized to sit there and just talk off the top of your head in front of a camera. I'm learning. So if you subscribe to my channel, thank you. If you've shared and if you've shared and subscribed to my channel, thank you. I'm humbled that my 4th video, when I talk about my first rapture dreams, has hit so many views. I'm humbled by that. Thank you. We'll talk more later. This is part 1 of a 2-part series on the millennium. I hope this is okay. I hope this turned out okay. God bless. I'm going to turn the camera off. Thank you, and God bless.